Today in the bunker, we're going to build a train suitable for the Underhive or the Wasteland. TTCombat supply train set comes wrapped in shrink wrap. It's got 8 boards, one of which is chipboard. And the instructions, if you go to the website, they're pretty concise. I went ahead and printed them off because my workbench is nowhere near where my computer is. So I'm going to start putting this together. It's a fairly straightforward build. We're just going to use PVA and glue the pieces together. So once we get this into a shape where we can start adding things to it, then we will come back. I do want to touch on a few things about the build. For one thing, I started building a little after 10, now it's a little after 2. So I'm not trying to be in a hurry, I'm trying to do it correctly. So it's taken me a while. I've never done a kit quite like this before. One of the things I've found was to do things like the wheels. Just go ahead and cut all of the wheels out, all of the outer wheels and the inner ones, and glue them together and get them ready to put on the axles when that's ready. Likewise, do all of the axles. Those will speed it up for later when it comes time to actually put these cars or the engine together. There's a lot of options, like these doors, you can cut these out and make them open, you can change them, whatever. So be mindful of that. You may want to glue something behind it to steady it, because if you push on it hard enough, it'll pop out. But so far, been pretty impressed. It's a good kit, goes together pretty well. Mine was slightly warped, but that's not really a big deal. So we're going to continue on. Oh, and another thing is save your little offcuts that you get. There's some good shapes, so even if you don't use them to detail this kit, you can use them for other things, especially if you're building things for the Underhive or whatever. These will make good control panels or whatnot. So we're going to continue on and see if we can get the rest of this done today. The first mod I'm going to do is the window inserts. When you put these cars together, there's a blank space, and on the chipboard piece there are these shuttered windows. Now you could go and actually cut out some shutters and build that piece, which would look pretty cool. I may do that for some of the front windows, but for the back I'm just taking some plastic window screen and just gluing it on with some PVA and then gluing that in place. And then once we paint that, we should be able to dry brush it, and that texture will pop out. I'm going to take some chipboard and make a door frame and probably some kind of a door handle as well. I may have gotten in a little deeper than I intended to. I started adding rivets to all of the window frames. I made an external window or a door frame and then added rivets. And I used styrene rod here. This is a 2mm, this is 1mm. Made the door controls. Made that door handle, I guess is what it's supposed to be, out of just more of that chipboard. And the chipboard is all either 3 or 5mm width. Added some detail up here. I'm not going to be able to paint on those engraved lines. I really stink at that, so I need to add 3D stuff. So I added some of that 1mm styrene rod, and then added these cutout panels back on there like they were access ports. And of course, we've got some wiring going in there, and I'll do much the same on this side, but you can see how plain this kind of looks compared to that. And especially once it's painted, that will really pop. So I need to figure out what I'm going to do about these doors and everything, but it's a descent into madness. Alright, I've moved ahead a little bit with the modifications. I've got some vents that I had 3D printed. I believe these are from a set you can get from Miscast. And added those on, put more rivets. The rivets, I noticed, I cut them a little unevenly. Once that super glue has cured, you can take like a sanding stick and just go back over it and level them out a little bit, kind of flatten them down. And if you're careful, I didn't have any of them pop off, so that was good. And then on the flat cars, these railings were just there, they were empty, so I put some mesh in there. I just glued it and then trimmed it around there with the sprue cutters. You can get very, very close, or some scissors, you know, whatever works. Of course, added more rivets, put some half round pieces on the end there, and a little bit of ladder. And I've got a little bit more to do. I'm probably going to put some panels on there with some rivets and some other minor details, but these already, oh, and I put some drywall tape on the bottom, so when that's painted, that'll look like metal planking. So we will continue with that, but it's, you can see it doesn't take much. You can use almost anything. I just happen to have a lot of this evergreen and plastrux stuff from previous projects, but if you don't have that, you could use other things. It would be no problem. You get a paper punch and punch out the rivets with like a 1/16 paper punch and glue them on there, and it would be fine. I'm just trying this because I've never used the styrene rod, so I wanted to see what sort of effect you get, and I do like it quite a bit. So we will come up with some more things to add to this. The engine will get a lot of pieces. I've got a larger fan bit to add and all that, and I've got some pieces for the interior, but we'll get to that shortly. All right, let's kind of catch up with what I've done. I've added the doorways and rivets, some door handles, these little entry panel things, rivets around the windows. I redid those windows. I made a cargo door on one end with a control panel that I 3D printed, but you could make it out of chipboard and rod or whatever. Same thing on that side, and then just did another door, basically the same style but a little bit different materials. I just was trying different things. I used some wood, square wood doweling, but you could use just the chipboard. That seems to work about the best. And then same thing with the flat cars. They had these little panels here that were, you can kind of see that etched in, and I had missed that on, well, now I don't know what I did with them, but there's a little actual louvered panel that goes there that I had missed. I didn't realize. I thought that was just a lasered in detail like these. So I made these panels with the rivets and stuck them on there. The louvered panel would have been great. I could have put some mesh behind it. It would have looked fantastic, so I kind of regret missing that now, but I have them for some other project because they're a nice piece. Added a piece of ladder, some half round, just to kind of make that look a little less just straight laser cut. Although if you left it as is, it would be fine. I mean, it is a fine kit as it comes out of the package, but just adding these few things I think really makes it pop. And then the engine, this is just dry fit together, but I've added the benches, added the driver's seat, the control panels, and the control panels I did, here, let's take this apart. And these come with there's a laser cut piece that goes on there that's kind of a giant keyboard, and that would look great if you painted it. Especially if you did it with some bright colors, it would really pop. I had these 3D printed pieces that I added to a piece of chipboard and glued in place, and then just put some rivets on the back just to kind of add a little bit of detail. I'm going to pre-paint these before I glue them in. And then everywhere that there is like kind of decking, I added drywall tape, just to give it kind of a non-skid appearance and dress that up. So I'm going to prime all of this before I put it together, throw it off the desk, and get that ready, because this will be, once it's put together, it'll be a little tough to prime. So we will get that done and see what it looks like. Once everything is primed, I primed it black and then went over it with a kind of a rusty brown color. I messed that up right there. And started to dry brush it with the gunmetal, and I just used some silver craft paint and some very dark gray paint, and you could use any of those two, mix them together to taste, to make your gunmetal color, and then just start kind of overbrushing it, and it gives it kind of a rusty metal look, which we can go back and add specific patches of rust or color, peeling paint, whatever we want. Did the same thing to the engine. The outside is all going to be that rusty color. The inside, because it's going to be sealed, I'm going to not have it be all rusty inside. So all of the inside pieces are just black prime and then some gunmetal dry brushed on it. Same thing with the panels. I'm going to paint those before we glue them in place. So we'll start putting that framework together and get this ready for the other pieces we need to add. With all the interior bits painted, then I went ahead and assembled the framework of the driver's cabin. Glued the seat in after it was painted, just put some PVA in the bottom and stuck it down. And then I painted up the control panels, which aren't super great, but they're inside of here. You're not really going to be able to see them. So I just wanted a little bit of color on them. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to glue them in place with some PVA. It's kind of fiddly to get in there. I'm not going to make you watch me do that, but we'll get those in place. All right, there's our driver's cabin put together. Hopefully that'll show up pretty good on the camera. What I tried to do was orient everything, the switches and the readouts, to where they would naturally, you'd want them if you were sitting in the command chair. So hopefully that came out sort of convincing. But in any case, let's move on to the other bits that we need to finish. And with that, we're going to call this finished. I added plastic, clear plastic, to enclose the cockpit. This is .030 from K&S, but you can use food packaging, whatever you've got. Be warned that it is a lot of kind of spatial relations, sort of figuring out how everything fits and how it's going to fit together. I felt like I took the ASVAB again, but it came out okay. I did take some very dark gray and paint around the edges and anywhere there was exposed edge to de-emphasize the fact that there's exposed plastic there, and that helped a great deal. This had a lot of white lines on it until I did that, and that really neatened that up. So this is a great kit as it comes out of the package. But the more details that you add to it that make it three-dimensional, the better it gets. So I cannot recommend this kit enough. It is still in production, so it should be fairly easy to get, even here in the US. And like I said, I recommend it a great deal. So if you need to train for the Underhive or the Wasteland, this is certainly a good one. I should add that the front looks better if you put all of the pieces on. I had neglected to put all of these bits on here, and they really, they kind of dress that front end up a lot. So be sure to add all the pieces, and like I said, fantastic kit. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great day.